Hey guys, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back with another segment of It's Getting Real. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we begin this interesting case. It's not my typical crime story. Don't have a lot of background information. And honestly, like a lot of other cases, I feel like a lot of this could have been avoided. But I want to know your opinions as we discuss the case. So let's go back to the year of 2013 and meet a man by the name of Ralph Wald, who is at this time 70. He's been living in his home in Brandon, Florida for nearly 20 years. He's a retired lieutenant colonel of the United States Army. He is a lawyer and he has some health issues, but he's not about to allow that to stop him. As a matter of fact, at the time of the crime, he was a newlywed, being recently married to Jonna, who at that time is 41. Yes, you heard me. I said 41. So let's then go to March 10th. It's around 12 a.m. At this point, Ralph's been married for 5 months and he's in his home. He wakes up, his throat is dry, he needs some water. It's midnight, to give you a little context. He heads to the kitchen and he hears, in his words, strange noises. Now, I don't think the noises were strange once we find out what was going on, but to them, they were strange. So he walks downstairs and he finds his wife, Jonna Lynn Flores, with a random man on top of her on the sofa. Now, he doesn't shout, "Get off of her." Instead, what he does is he leaves the room. He goes to his gun cabinet, grabs his .38, goes back into the living room where the man was on top of his wife, approaches the man, who we later learn is Walter Conley, 32 years old, and aims his weapon at that man and shoots him in the chest. Because to his knowledge, this man was, his words, fornicating with his wife, and he wanted to inflict pain. At least that's what he later told police. Now, to me, if you want to inflict pain, you shoot one time, you wait till the person is off, you do whatever you have to do, call 911, all those other things. But one round in this instance wasn't enough. He needed to do more than that. So he fires a second shot. And then he fires a third shot, this time to his head, killing him. Now, that to me doesn't sound like you're just trying to hurt him. It sounds like you want to do more than that. So Ralph calls 911, tells the operator, some guy was in here fornicating with my wife. Exact words. I went back and got my gun and shot him. The dispatcher is like, okay, is he awake? Is he responding? And he says, no, he's dead. The dispatcher says, oh, he's dead? And he says, I hope so. The dispatcher then tries to convince him to render aid to the person that he shot. He refuses. Now, we don't know what the wife was doing because it's not said what the wife was doing when all this was going on. But on the 911 call, you don't hear any screams or anything like that in the background. You just hear him very calmly talking about what he did. And he is very unapologetic about what he did because in his eyes, this attacker deserved to be gunned down. But here's the thing. Looks can be deceiving, and I'm not sure if I buy the story that's going to be told, but you all let me know what you think. Because it turns out that his wife was not being assaulted. She was actually being a willing participant and was happily cheating on her much older husband with a much younger man, 32-year-old Walter Conley. Now, this gets even more interesting, y'all, because Walter is her ex. Is her ex-boyfriend. He was her longtime lover off and on. At one point, he worked with her and he lived with her. They have been together off and on for years. He even had a tattoo of Jonna on his arm. right? But she married this other guy. Let's keep going. Now, despite being married, she never really let go of him, and she continued sleeping with him even after her wedding to Ralph. So Ralph, we find out later on, even met the guy a few times and spoke with him. I get that it was dark at the time, but you didn't turn on the lights or anything like that once you shot him. Now, let's give you guys a little bit more context, okay? A couple of weeks before Jonna was arrested, before her wedding, okay? She was arrested. She and Walter, the one that just got shot up by her husband, got into an argument. This was back in October, on October 19th. He was renting a room from her at the time. She wanted him to leave. They got into it around 3 a.m. She tried to shoot the man. So all these people got issues, okay? She tries to shoot the man. She's then charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Now, Ralph, her now husband, at the time he wasn't her husband yet, they still had 2 more weeks. Her future old man goes down to the jail and bails her out. The charges are later dropped. She then marries Ralph on October 25th, 2012. Let's give you a little bit of backstory about her. She, Jonna Flores, she's originally from Somerset, Pennsylvania. It was said that she was mistreated by her stepfather as a child, which caused her to have other issues, eventually leading to her having a drinking problem. She liked to drink a lot to the point where her words would black out. She later repeats that to police and tells them that because of how much she was drinking on this particular night of the killing, she has no memory of what happened. Rather convenient. To make matters worse, Jonna, with her scandalous tale, never admitted to her husband that Walter was actually her boo thing. He was her side piece. So as far as he was concerned, he was trying to save her, so he says. She didn't tell him that she and the man were having an affair. He didn't end up finding out that his wife was cheating on him until when they were both down at the police station being questioned, and he heard her being interrogated by officers. Well, let me not say he heard it because, you got to do stuff right. Some kind of way he overheard the conversation and found out based on the interrogation that she had been dealing with this man. She claimed she didn't tell him all of this because, as I said, she was a drinker. She said, I am bipolar and I have alcohol dependencies. I really can't make proper decisions during the time I'm drinking and I'm on my medication. So I guess because she was drinking and on her medication, even though he could hear certain noises, which would be her having pleasure, she couldn't scream no when she heard the first shot, or stop when she heard the second, or I know him before he did the third. She claimed she wanted to end the relationship with Walter, but something was holding her back. And I'll tell y'all what was holding her back. Y'all want to know what was holding her back? It's real simple. Sex. You see, Ralph and Jonna, even though they were married, never had sex. Never. Because she was too busy getting it from her ex-boyfriend. She tells her husband that she doesn't have relations because of her abuse as a child, and having relations is uncomfortable for her, going as far as telling him that she hated it. Now, I personally take offense to that, because I don't like when people lie about stuff like that, because there are people who legitimately are scarred from things of that nature, who have been traumatized, who at times sex is scary for them. It does trigger them. It does remind them of things that have been done to them. So for her, I'm not saying that it didn't happen to her. For her to give her husband that as an excuse, to me, she was weaponizing it. And I don't like that. So when he sees a man on top of her, after her saying that she doesn't do that type of thing, his last thought is that his wife is cheating on him. Instead, he assumes that she was in danger and he needed to protect her. I personally still don't know if I believe it, because you heard sounds coming from her. She wasn't saying no. She wasn't saying stop it or anything like that. Her mouth wasn't duct taped, anything. She just was making noises. He went on to say that he felt terrible about murdering the man, but then said the man should not have been in my house at midnight having sex with my wife. I don't care what you say about that. He should not have been there. So do you really feel bad about shooting him? Because the man, maybe he was wrong because he came to your house and he was fornicating on your couch, but you should be taking some of that up with her. So it's another day. Hillsborough County Assistant State Attorney Chris Moody charges Ralph with second-degree murder. They go to court. And despite what I just told you, it takes the jurors 2 hours to clear the retired lieutenant colonel, Ralph Wald, of second-degree murder charges in the March 10th slaying of Walter Conley. The courts end up acquitting him of the murder, saying that he acted in self-defense. I personally don't agree with that, but what do I know? His attorney, Joe, built his self-defense around the Florida stand your ground law. Let me say that again because it pisses me off. So I'm going to say it again and make sure I say it correctly. Florida's stand your ground law. Don't get me started on that freaking law and how many people, in my opinion, have gotten away with murder as a result of it. But he was able to get cleared because of that law. The law says that a homeowner has no obligation to retreat when faced with an intruder on his property. But in my opinion, Walter wasn't an intruder because he was welcomed in by the wife. Okay? So Ralph gets off, later tells reporters that he and his wife were planning on salvaging their marriage and that it would require counseling and things like that for their sexual problems, but they were going to do it. Outside of the circuit court, his spouse was over there smiling and happy and telling reporters that she was elated that her husband had been acquitted. In my opinion, she should have been charged too. I do not feel like it was self-defense. I feel like these people got over and were able to eliminate this man, especially considering the fact that she, 5 months prior, had tried to shoot him to get him out of her house. So who's to say what that whole situation was? I'm not buying the goods that they're selling, but you all tell me if you disagree or agree. I want to know. So hours after the not guilty verdict, she tells reporters, my husband forgives me 100%, but there are, of course, trust issues. That's something that we're going to have to get counseling about. I wouldn't give that man up for the world. Now, one of the jurors, Lawrence Silverman, speaks out about the jury's decision, and he says that he feels like it's important to understand the jury's reasoning. He said it came down to whether or not Mr. Wald felt threatened in his home, and every juror believed that the 70-year-old felt threatened. I personally wouldn't, not based on what I was told, but that's the decision that they made. So he walks out of the jail and he and his wife exchange a passionate kiss in front of the reporters before they get in the car and it takes off. Now, I know you think that that's the end, but it's not, because their marriage continues and it's filled with lots of issues over the next 6 years, to the point where court records showed that the couple's domestic strife continued after the murder trial. It's October 2014 now. Ralph tries to file a petition to dissolve the marriage, but he drops it a few months later. Then on January 31st, 2018, his wife gets arrested at their home after Ralph tells the deputies that she threw a metal picture frame at him during an argument and it cut his shin. She was charged with battery with a weapon, but as it always happens, the charges get dropped a month later. She at one point tells family members that she thought that he was trying to kill her because there were instances where she would be sleeping and she would awake to him standing over her. That there were times where he would sneak in the room and watch her. So we're going to jump to September 2019, 6 years after Walter was killed by Ralph. And Ralph was found not guilty. And now he's back in police custody. But this time he's back because he's accused of taking his wife's life. Now I gotta be honest. My original reaction when I read this was I did not feel sorry for her. I didn't. I'm always going to keep it honest on this channel because I feel like she was responsible for the killing of Walter. She cheated on her husband. She was sleeping around. She brought this other man into a house. He was wrong too, but she had relations with him knowing her husband was there. Her husband was in fear of his life and kills this man. And now she's believed to be killed by her husband. So police charge Ralph, who is now 77 years old, with manslaughter on September 16, 2019. It happened that after it happened, he made a call to 911. He reported that he found his wife dead on their couch. Police come into the property, find his wife. At the time, she's 48. She's slumped over on the couch with a bullet wound to her chest. So I guess he's trying to act like she shot herself in the chest. There was blood pooled around her feet and her ankles. They found one empty bottle of vodka, another bottle that was almost empty, and it was on the floor near the couch. The house is a mess and it stinks. It's described as clutter, smelling like cigarette smoke with lots of fecal matter from dogs on the floor. His wife is the second person that has been killed in that home. And it is later discovered, because the police ask him if he had a weapon, he says no, but how did she shoot herself? It's later discovered that not only was she shot with a gun, but it was the same gun that he shot the other guy with 7 years prior, and it had 7 or 6 years prior, and it had the same markings and stuff that was on it while doing forensics testing. They immediately suspect that he shot his wife. So he's taken into custody and later released on bond. The trial is then delayed, of course, because of the pandemic. His health declines. Then in October 2022, he shows up in a wheelchair before the judge with his attorney. The attorney tells him that his health is declining, it's failing, and he feels like Ralph is incompetent to stand trial. The judge says, okay, you saying he's incompetent? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and schedule some competency testing for Ralph. But nothing comes of it, you guys, because he did not make it to the testing. Because on January 2023, less than 2 months after the hearing where it was postponed for him to get the competency testing, he dies. His attorney, John Hackworth, says that he passed away from health complications, and he released the following statement that I disagree with in some ways, but I'm still going to read it. I am deeply saddened by the passing of Ralph Wald. Mr. Wald's life was marked by his service to his country in Vietnam, his commitment to his career, and the love for his family. While Mr. Wald's life was unfortunately marred by his involvement with the criminal justice system, at least for the last 2 years, he was much more than this. He will be deeply missed. I don't care about him being a Vietnam vet. At the end of the day, because one of the statements that he made to police was that he killed over 150 people while at war, I disagree with you trying to act like he didn't do the things that he did, veteran or not, wife cheating on him or not. It doesn't excuse what happened. And unfortunately, because of this man, there are not just the other lives, but there are 2 lives that were directly affected, and countless others, because she had a son and I believe he had a daughter. So these are now people who will no longer have their loved one, all because of their selfishness. Because that's what it is. Bottom line is, everybody in this situation is selfish. If you don't want to marry the man, if you don't want to be with the man, then don't be with the man. You could have kept being his next door neighbor. And as far as the other guy, the 32-year-old that was cheating with the 40-something-year-old, like, why were you cheating with her either? All these lives lost over what? This is a funky ending, I know, but I'm not going to fake it. I read this case and I was like, yeah, I'm going to share this with my people because it's been real heavy lately. And I feel like this is a little bit lighter. Rest in peace to the people who lost their lives unnaturally. Well, I can't even say unnaturally. Even him, rest in peace to him too. But I gotta be honest, I'm not feeling badly for the 70-something-year-old because he committed these crimes and he didn't have to pay the price. He didn't even have to answer for any of the crimes. But you all, tell me what you think down below. Until next time.